Hi, everyone. This is Ben Driggs. I have DJ with us on the presentation today. Welcome to our monthly webinar. We have a lot of people joining us this morning, and we appreciate your taking a few minutes out of your time to learn about today's topic is investments. So we're going to be talking about investing, and we appreciate your time. For those of you who are clients, we appreciate your being clients and kind of walking this financial journey together. Just a couple of housekeeping things. This webinar will be 30 minutes. DJ and I will be hosting the call. I'll be doing most of the talking. DJ is going to be talking at one point. We're going to be doing a poll and asking for your input on one particular topic. We have these every month. This year, we are going systematically through the topics that we've identified as our general overview of the 11 different areas of finances that we talk about regularly: debt and lending, estate planning, investments, budgeting, insurance, and the like. So today's topic is investing. If you have a question, please raise your hand and submit that. We really, really appreciate your questions, and we will plan to end at the bottom of the hour so you can count on us to be punctual. So if anyone has any questions, fire away. DJ and I will be monitoring the questions, and we will get right to it. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about investments, and I want to use this next slide as an overview of really what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes. There are we've come up with roughly a 6-step process about investing. And you can read through these with me. The first and most important, in my opinion, is to understand what you're trying to achieve. A lot of people, myself included, often we just go through life marching and doing, survival kind of things and maybe planning, maybe not, without really a sense of why we're doing these things. So we want to start with a vision of where we're headed, what we want to achieve. Then, secondly, when it comes to investing, we want to understand our risk profile. We'll be talking about that. The third thing is understanding the 2 basic types of investment accounts. That would be a liquid taxable account and our illiquid long-term investments or investment accounts, such as a 401k or an IRA. Then going on number 4, we want to understand the investment options at our disposal. Number 5 is how we use those different investments in the different accounts. So in account number 1, we might have investment ABC. In account number 2, we might have investment XYZ. And why are we choosing those investments for those particular accounts? I think that investing is definitely more of an art than a science. There is nuance. Very few things are cut and dried. We kind of feel that out based on some general principles. And then number 6, we put it together, put it all together. So let me slide down here. Page down isn't working. So hold on. So the analogy we put together today is likening investing to cooking. And there are a lot of analogies here. Now, I would not fancy myself as a cook. Maybe some of you on the call really enjoy cooking. Maybe you guys are really good at cooking. My wife, Tiffany, I think she might be on the call. She's a very good cook. She likes cooking shows. And we know that even if you're watching a Gordon Ramsay cooking show, and of course he has many, even the finest chefs can have bad days. However, when the chefs part of the art of being a cook is you understand these different things, put it all together, and your chances of having a successful outcome obviously are enhanced. And that's our goal today. We don't need to become master chefs, anything like that. But we do want to understand the basic rules of the game. What basically happens in the kitchen, so to speak? What are the basic tools that we're using? There are certain orders of operations. We're talking about, Master Chef and Gordon Ramsay. What is a protein? And how's that going to match up with the vegetables or the dessert? How does plating come into play? So all these different points all collectively create a positive experience. And we're going to liken that to investing. So the first thing, as I mentioned earlier, steps 1, 2, and 3, we start with a vision. We understand our preferences. That's our risk profile and the resources and tools. What accounts are we working with? How much money do we have? Likening this to the kitchen, really, or do we have a big master chef kitchen, or do we have a little tiny kitchen? So we need to know our resources, our capacity, and the like. Number 2 is the ingredients. That's where we start looking into the specific investments. What investments are at our disposal? Are we in the position to buy a big skyscraper? Probably not. Could we buy a second home as a rental property? Maybe, maybe not. Are we paying our bills? If we're not paying our bills and our income isn't, enough to pay the bills, then investing becomes a very difficult thing to do. So we need to understand our capacity. We need to understand the different tools that we have. We'll talk about those: cash and bonds, real estate, as I mentioned before. Number 3 is diversification. We want things to be balanced. When you create a meal, of course, you want balance between proteins and carbohydrates, between different colors, all of the different flavors, spices, and whatnot. Really good chefs know how to balance things out. And that balance is what creates a healthy dish, a sustainable dish, and a dish that is less likely to be a complete bomb. If we only have a one-dimensional dish, just like if we have a one-dimensional investment, our chances of having a really disappointing outcome are increased, intensified, of course. Then we put it all together. Timing is a big part of that. We have to understand when things are coming out of the kitchen, when things need to be presented to our guests or to ourselves, or to, if we're running a restaurant. So timing is the most important thing. When do we make certain moves, and when are we going to be focused on our short-term investments? What are those short-term investments? Well, we've got to pay the bills. Long-term investments are, retirement. That might be many years down the road. It might be around the corner. But the timing of when things need to reach their peak is really a part of the savvy and the art of investing. And so sometimes we say, well, what are your investment objectives? And we'll talk about those next. Well, they're very different depending on the time of life and our circumstances. So it's not as easy to say, oh, my investment objectives is to grow the money as much as possible with a long-term time horizon. Well, that would be easy, but what about paying off our debt? What about that trip that we want to take in 2 years? We've always wanted to go on a second honeymoon to Paris, and we want to do that in 2 years. I want to hike to the base of Mount Everest. So, okay, what's that looking like? I need to pay off my student loans. These different things all have different time horizons, and that will come into play, just like the things in the kitchen have different consequences. And then lastly, ultimately, we're trying to have an enjoyable meal. We want to create something that is satisfying, something in which we have confidence, and that ultimately tastes good for ourselves, for our loved ones, and that we can rely on. And that's part of, it's really what we're doing this for. So starting number one, understanding our investment objectives. There are roughly 5 investment objectives as outlined here. First one, we just want to hold on to our cash, liquidity, don't lose it. That typically correlates with an immediate or short-term need for the money. So for instance, my daughter, who I think she might be on this call as well, she is about ready to move to Northern California, start a new job. She has to put money down on her, first and last month's rent type of thing. She needs to buy some furniture and she needs to move in. It's going to take a while before her new job starts paying her money. So she's got to set aside some money immediately, for the short term. She cannot afford that to be illiquid, and she cannot afford that to be going down. She needs to save up, say, $5,000 to make this move. The last thing she wants to do is wake up one morning after the market has a terrible run, and now that 5,000 is 4,000, and she's in trouble. So that is, we really want to focus on that. Growth is the long term. That's our retirement. That is the slow burn. We definitely want to keep an eye on that. That's going to take ultimately usually the most amount of work, the most amount of patience, the most amount of sacrifice. Number 3 is income. That is when we're retired typically, but it might be pre-retirement. But typically when we're retired, we have to be thinking about, okay, for years I've been growing the money, but now I'm going to start living off that money. So the investment objective is income rather than growth. Now, those are not mutually exclusive. You could have something that is growing and kicking off income. The best example is a rental property. You own a rental property, it's appreciated in value and it's kicking off income. That would be a great example of a growth and income strategy. Tax optimization number 4, that particularly with higher income earners in a higher tax bracket, we want to be sensitive to taxes. And legacy does come into play. A lot of people say, oh, legacy, that's philanthropy, that's giving to your kids, charity, other people, either during your lifetime or when you pass. So that planning, and a lot of people think, oh, that's for rich people. Well, I suspect every single person on this call, when they die, they will have money to give to other people. So even if it's a small amount of money, we need to be thoughtful about who's going to be getting this money. Why are we doing this? And there are going to be several people on this call, I believe, who might be tracking ahead. They're in retirement. Their retirement incomes needs are met, and they are for sure going to have some money when they pass. So the question is, well, why am I doing this for me? Am I trying to save up as much money for me? Well, I don't need any more money. I'm okay. I've met my own needs. So am I doing this for my children? Am I doing this for some other cause? Extra security? And if so, what are those insecurities lurking beneath the surface that we have to keep on growing the money? Can't we just relax, enjoy the income, and give it to our kids? And if so, if we're going to be giving to the kids, why not give to the kids earlier? They would appreciate it. It typically is better used to give money to the children. They will typically appreciate it, and often that benefit can go further given at an earlier age. So these are questions to consider. Understanding our risk profile. There are we come up with like 8 here. There could be a couple more. I'll let you kind of look through these. We're next going to move. What time is it right now? I'm going to check here. It's 10:15. We're about halfway done. So let me go through these really quickly. Then I'm going to ask DJ to step in. We're going to do a quick risk profile exercise for the listeners. And then we can take a minute or two to answer some questions. So let me go over these really quickly. Appetite for volatility. When we make a lot of money or lose a lot of money, depending on your own personality, some people they don't really mind, they don't even pay attention to it. They lose a bunch of money and they move on without a thought. Other people get very stressed out when they lose money. And so we need to understand that. Our financial capacity is relevant because if we have no money, we have to safeguard that more. But at the same time, we also have to grow the money. So it puts a lot of pressure, financial obligations. If it's one thing, if you're single, you have no children, you're paying your bills, and your income is okay, you can afford to, be a little more aggressive. Well, that's very different if you have children who are depending on you and you really can't afford to make any major screw ups. Your history and relationship with money are emotional, they're complex. Sometimes based on our upbringing, we might have certain triggers that we want to be sensitive to and honor those. Now, as a side note, we could talk to people, and read books and talk with therapists, meet with people like us, try to understand what's going on there. But, practically speaking, if we have some deep-seated issues related to money, fear of money, shame related to money, then we need to be honest with that. Our goals are relevant because if we have a 1-year goal compared to a 50-year goal, we're going to invest differently. That relates to time horizon, which if you took a test and they give you all these things, they'd say, what is the single most important thing to take into consideration? Market conditions, personality traits, etc. Time horizon. Very, very important. It revolves around how much time we have to invest the money. Investment experience, if we're comfortable with understanding things, we typically are going to be a little more aggressive because we do understand things go up over time generally. And then lastly, confidence in institutional stability. Kind of an aggressive investor they may not recognize or think themselves as an aggressive investor, but they would typically have an innate trust of government, of the financial system, of investing generally. It's like, I don't know, it goes up, it goes down, but over time it goes up. Okay, that is a classic attitude of someone who's aggressive. By contrast to someone who's like, I don't know, government's going to be going under, the national debt is just unsustainable, bad things around the corner, I'm really nervous, I'm checking my account regularly, that kind of stuff is indicative of a conservative investor. Okay, so DJ, well, before we do that, let me see do we have any questions?
And Ben, you want to go back one slide, just keep it on the previous one. And
let me see.
We don't have questions.
Okay. There's just a comment there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back up here. Oh, we'll keep it there. DJ, go ahead.
So I'll turn on my video here for a second. So we're going to go quickly do a risk profile. We're going to take just a few minutes and then we'll finish out the presentation here. But just to kind of help each of you know kind of where yours is at, because, as Ben mentioned, or he may have mentioned a little earlier, time horizon is a big deal and a big part of it, but there are so many other factors to what makes up your risk profile. You could have somebody that is saving for retirement and has 30 years until they'll use the money, a long time horizon. If you looked at that, you'd say, oh, they should be, aggressive. However, because their history, relationship with money, or their capacity, that might bring them down and pull them more towards conservative, right? They may be more moderate. And so, anyways, so we just got 5 simple questions. And I'm going to do one at a time. It'll pop up on your screen. If you're on a computer, you'll see it, or your phone, it'll pop up there. And you'll have 3 options, A, B, and C, or I don't know if they do 1, 2, 3, or if it's just bullet points. But just quickly read through it. They're very simple, and answer those. I'll give maybe 15 seconds per question. And then we'll talk about how to score those and kind of gauge where your where your risk profile is. So we'll start now. I'm going to do the first one here. So you have about, I just hit start, so you should see that popped up now. I'll give you about 10, 15 seconds to answer one of those 3, read through it and answer those. You don't have to think too much about it. Okay. See everybody flooding in. I can see all the answers coming in here. So good. We'll give maybe 5 more seconds. And if you don't, if you don't answer it, then that's okay. We'll go through. Okay. All right, now we'll go to the second one for you all. And I guess I could read out the questions in case anybody, but the second one is, when will you start using most of this money? Less than 3 years, 3 to 10 years, more than 10 years? Sounds pretty straightforward there. A few seconds, a few more. Most everybody's voted. Okay, now we will go. And I think you can always go back if you missed one. You should be able to see the list of them there on your device. We'll do the next question here. How much of your investable money could you leave untouched during a market downturn? Very little, some, or most, or all? So if you have money invested in a 401k or something else and something went down, and the market was going down, or you're seeing stuff on the news, how could you, what would your main reaction be there? Okay. Okay. I see that. We'll give it a couple more seconds. I'll publish the results on all of them so you can kind of see where you're at with those with everybody else. So go back here, and then the fourth one. When markets are volatile, when either they, quick up or down, how does it usually make you feel? And obviously this is going to be, most people have more feelings when it's going down. Either very anxious, you prefer stability, you're a bit concerned, or you're unfazed. You just see it as a thing that happens. So the 3 options there. Okay, we'll give it. We got about 90% of the people have voted. Okay, you guys are getting the hang of this here. So keep going, and then let's do the last one here. And this one is for each of you individually. Which is most important to you right now? Protecting what you have, balancing growth and safety, or just growing the money, maximizing your long-term growth? Okay, do have most people here. So I'll publish the results so that you can see them. But we'll kind of talk through, Ben, if you'll go to the next slide, and we can talk through how to score on here. And I think with publishing these, you should be able to see what you voted for. But it's pretty simple. Obviously, each of these 5 questions had 3 answers. The first answer would be the conservative. The second was the moderate. The third is the aggressive. I'm sure most of you picked up on that. And the way the scoring works is you get 1 point for the conservative answer, 2 points for the balanced or moderate, the second one, and 3 points for the growth. So you can quickly tally up your answers through 1 through 5 on your own. And if you end in the 5 to 8 point range, that's your conservative investor. If you end up in the 9 to 12 point range, you're a balanced or a moderate. And then 13 to 15 would be that growth or an aggressive investor. And looking at the results here, for the first one, most people put B, which would be the balanced. So, you get 2 points there. Let me back. We'll see what most people did. On the second one, most people were aggressive, so that's 3. So we're at 5 there. And then the third question, most people put C, so that's another 3 there. So we're at 8. The fourth one, most people by a long shot put the second answer, so that'd be 2 more, so that's 10. And then the last one, most people put the second answer, so that'd be 12. So most people on this call are the balanced or moderate investor, kind of on the high end of that, almost touching on aggressive. Could have gone, with one more question in one direction. So anyways, we just wanted to run through it quick. Obviously, it's not super comprehensive, but it can give you a good idea of where you fall on these three things. So with that, with the last 4 or 5 minutes, I'll turn it over to Ben to kind of wrap up.
Hey, yeah, great, thanks. And that's actually consistent with our entire book of business. Most people are moderate. And because most people are investing for the long term, they move toward the aggressive. So moderate to moderate aggressive is where we see, I'd say, most people, but certainly not all people. So we just have about 3-4 minutes left. Let's switch now to some specific things. This is a little more high level today. We're not getting in, if we get to the cooking analogy, we're not going to analyze, the garlic compared to the fruits, etc. But we want to understand what's happening in the kitchen. So there are two kinds of accounts. Investments ultimately follow into one of these two. The more liquid, taxable, and the less liquid, we want to understand the investment options. So investment options typically fall into 4 categories. Your ultra conservative cash, and then we've given a few examples there. You're also conservative, but not quite as conservative as cash, or your bonds. We'll have another time to talk about what bonds are, but those generally are going to be more conservative than not. Then on the aggressive side, as you have stocks, I've listed a few different ways that you could invest in stocks. You could either buy the individual stocks or buy a basket of stocks in the form of a mutual fund. And then lastly, you have alternative investments. These are kind of your other miscellaneous category, often for more high net worth or experienced, more sophisticated vendors or investors, or more speculative investors. So that's kind of a miscellaneous category. So those are the different options. We're getting here toward the end of the presentation. So as we're starting to figure out, we have everything put in the kitchen, we understand what goes where. Then ultimately we're saying which investments go where. So we're going to put these investments in this account, these investments in these accounts, starting with the 2 basic breakdown: your liquid, your taxable. Generally speaking, in your liquid taxable accounts are going to be more conservative, not necessarily, but generally speaking, because you want that money to be accessible, not a lot of volatility. Then in your long term, your more illiquid, tax deferred IRA, 401k, real estate types of investments, those are individual stocks. Those are ETFs, which kind of a basket of stocks. Those could be in mutual fund form. But the point is, those tend to be more aggressive. Alternative investments would fall into that category as well. And then the last piece is putting it all together. We end here with this slide showing a few different people eating at meals. And as you can see here, there are a lot of things that are happening that have to go into this kind of a meal. There has to be a vision for the meal. Someone or a group of people had to put something together, and they had to be thinking about that. They had to understand how things work together. They had to prepare. They had a plan. We're going to have 15 guests over for this dinner party. What's going to be going into this? Just like we are getting ready to go, we want to save up for college in 5 years. What goes into that decision and into that plan? We want to retire in 20 years. What's going to be going into that? So you have a planning component. You have a shopping and ingredients. So what ingredients are we going to use? Stocks, bonds, alternative investments. What is going to be going into the recipe? Are we going to make it really simple, or are we going to make it complex? And there's a lot to be said for comfort food. Nice and easy, it gets the job done. And but sometimes we want to be a little more sophisticated and have a little more of a gourmet feel. That's up to you as an investor about how sophisticated you want to be. At the end of the day, you're probably going to get the same result, quite frankly. So I don't think sophistication necessarily translates to better results. It may, over the long run with a very sophisticated portfolio management team, you might be able to eke out a little better than average. But usually the market is going to give you what the market's going to give you. So we do want to be sensitive to customize a meal. If you are a novice cook, it may not behoove you to go and try to put together an elaborate spread of a complex, spices and whatnot. If your ultimate objective is to get from point A to point B, you might be just as fine to get together, put together some roast and potatoes, throw in some fresh veggies, and bake a pie. If you want to go with something more, kind of fancy there. I don't know that pie is fancy, but for a lot of people, for me, baking a pie would be fancy. Well, at least certainly baking the crust would be complex. So, how you go about it, that's really personal, personal thing. But ultimately, we want a plan, we want a vision, and lastly, we want to emphasize long term. This is something that we're doing every single day. We eat every single day, but the collective throughout our entire lives, the sum of what we're eating every single day, as we learned in kindergarten, you are what you eat. Ultimately, the final outcome, your physical body will be manifesting the years of what you're putting into your body. Similarly, what's going to be happening later on in your life, by all means, is being shaped by these small little decisions you're making every day about what to do with your money. Contact us to review, and here are some disclosures, and that wraps up. So let me go back to this other screen, make sure I'm, do we have any questions before we wrap up?
And if anybody has any questions, you can throw them into the Q&A. We can see that right now. If not, I think it was pretty straightforward. So
thank you so much. I don't know off the top of my head what our next thing is, but we'll be sure to email you to let you know when we are going to be having it's going to be the second Thursday in September. So I don't have the topic off the top of my head or that date. We'll be sure to notify you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day.
We do have one question of, can we get the info again, please? So if you want to pop back one slide just to end out here for anybody that needs the email or phone number. There you go. We'll leave that on the screen for the next 30 seconds or so you can write it down or put it in your phone or whatever it is. Take a screenshot, something like that.
Yeah, be sure to give us a call and we can go through we are I don't know that we are high-level chefs, but we understand what goes into food and what we need in the kitchen to get the job done. Thank you so much. Take care.